What is the politics behind the failure to enact the right to education bill?
The politics is very clear of the failure to enact the right to education bill, and that is that the common minimum program to ensure this right, to follow up with the constitutional guarantee of the right to education, was hijacked by the finance and commerce ministries, who believe that education should not be a priority for the government, who believe that the private sector is best suited to serve the purposes of education, and who believe that education should become not a responsibility of the government, but the right of the private and corporate sector to make it into a business enterprise. And therefore today, for example, whereas 50% of our girl children drop out of, they don't cross class 8. 50% of girl children, the brightest of the new generation. So people who talk about youth, people who talk about the commitment to youth, but the education policies are such that the basic requirement to ensure that our children are in school, which requires funds. 50% of your schools don't even have a pakka roof. A large percentage of your schools don't have the basic infrastructure. And as far as inputs from teachers are concerned, today you're hiring a so-called para teacher, one teacher who's looking after classes 1 to 5. This AKL concept was started by the BJP, and the Congress has basically followed it because they're hiring teachers for 1,500 or 2,000 rupees a month. And what can you expect those people to do? How are you going to educate people? How are you going to educate your children? And the worst thing is, even the benefits of the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, which brought more children into the school-going framework, they have drastically cut down resources. So basically the finance ministry, as part of this whole neoliberal approach of the Manmohan Singh government, utterly failed and betrayed the assurance to give 6% of the GDP in allocations to education. So without the funds, the entire thrust of the education program was left to the private sector. And today the most striking feature of the UPA regime in the last 5 years has been the exorbitant rise of expenses for school. And of course, as far as higher institutions are concerned, they charge up to 30 lakh rupees for a post, for a seat in a private medical college. So we said, bring a legislation for social control. There must be social control of these profit-making institutions. I mean, it's loot in the name of education. And how can a poor person, a poor family's child, who may be brilliant, who may be such an asset for our country, ever access higher education with these kind of costs and no social control? Therefore, this entire neoliberal framework has hit the social sector hard. Because of the interventions of the left, we did ensure that a larger amount of money was given for both health and education compared to earlier times, but unfortunately, it was highly inadequate. And along with being inadequate, the mindset of a neoliberal framework where whatever the private sector does is correct was what dominated, to the extent that they even wanted to bring FDI in higher education. They had the most dreadful bill to allow third-rate foreign universities to come to this country. I mean, at present, of the foreign providers here, half of them, 50% of them don't even exist in the countries of their origin. This is the kind of third-rate institutions they want to bring here, which will not only raise the cost and the market cost, because naturally when it's so high, it's going to have a cascading impact. So the corporate sector, FDI, this is what their priority was, because it's well known that the Prime Minister and his Finance Minister at the time, Chidambaramji, and the Planning Commission Chairperson, Dr. Ahluwalia, they're all committed to bringing education into the profit-making framework which is what WTO has been demanding.